In 2004, a team of archaeologists working in a cave on the southern coast of South Africa began carefully brushing away 75,000-year-old sediment and found something that shouldn't have been there. Not stone tools, the bones of a meal. Small marine shells, each one pierced through with a single hole, stained a deep red with pigment, strung as though for a necklace that had long since rotted away. Someone, in an age before farming, before villages, before anything we would call civilization, had sat down with a shell, a sharpened stone, and nothing urgent to do, and had decided to make themselves beautiful. That single fact should stop you, because the world these people lived in was not gentle. Lions hunted at night. A twisted ankle could be a death sentence. And yet, in the middle of that precariousness, someone spent an afternoon drilling through a shell for no reason connected to survival at all. So, here is the question worth sitting with. What were early humans actually doing with the empty hours in their day, tens of thousands of years before there was anything to watch, read, or scroll through? The answer touches on why we make art, why we gossip, why religion exists at all, and why, if you let your mind go quiet for even a few minutes today, something strange and important happens inside your skull. For a long time, the working assumption among anthropologists was that this question didn't even make sense. Early humans, the thinking went, too busy staying alive to have idle time at all. Hunting, foraging, building shelter from dawn until collapse. Then, in 1966, the anthropologist Marshall Solins published a paper that overturned that picture entirely, drawing on fieldwork among the Juhansi and other sand peoples of the Kalahari, groups living a foraging lifestyle close to how humans lived for most of our history. Solins found that adults spent roughly 15 to 20 hours a week actually gathering food, a day, a week. He called them provocatively the original affluent society. Not wealthy in possessions, but wealthy in something modern people chronically lack: time with nothing scheduled in it. So the mystery isn't whether ancient humans had empty hours. It's what they did with them. And the shell beads from that South African cave, associated with the Middle Stone Age site of Blombos, and studied for years by researchers including archaeologist Francesco De Rico, are widely regarded as among the earliest known evidence of symbolic ornamentation in our species: deliberate, non-functional, decorative. Drilling through a shell with nothing but a stone point, without metal, without any shortcut, would have taken real time and real patience. There was no practical reward, it didn't feed anyone. And they did it anyway. The pattern doesn't stop there. In 2008, in a cave called Hohle Fels in southern Germany, archaeologist Nicholas Conard and his team recovered fragments of a flute carved from the hollow wing bone of a griffon vulture, with 5 carefully spaced finger holes. It dates to roughly 40,000 years ago, placing it among the oldest known musical instruments on Earth. Someone, in an Ice Age landscape, with a fire and a bird bone and an evening stretching ahead of them, invented an instrument, not to signal danger, not to coordinate a hunt, to make sound that pleased the ear. Here's where it gets stranger, though. A dog left alone in a room isn't bored, not the way you are. It's simply waiting. It has no internal model of a more interesting alternative. Boredom, as far as researchers can tell, requires something a dog doesn't have: an awareness that time is passing, that this moment could contain something else, that a future exists which might be better than the present. In other words, boredom isn't an absence, it's evidence of imagination already switched on. Which means that person carving a bird bone or drilling a shell wasn't just filling time. Their mind had already developed the capacity to picture things that didn't yet exist. And a mind that can picture things that don't exist yet is a mind that can eventually ask what happens after death, what's on the other side of that mountain, why the sun disappears and returns. Every question philosophy has ever asked, and religion, and eventually science, starts from that same restless place, isn't just a poetic idea. It has been tested directly. In 2013, the psychologist Sandy Mann ran an experiment in which participants completed one of the dullest tasks imaginable: copying numbers out of a phone directory, before being tested on a creative task immediately afterwards. The group that had just endured the boring task consistently outperformed those who hadn't. generating more original ideas. Boredom, it turns out, doesn't shut the mind down, forces it to manufacture its own stimulation. And what it manufactures is often more inventive than anything handed to it from outside. But the most consequential thing early humans did with their idle hours may not have been carving or drilling at all. It was talking, not logistics, not warnings about predators. Mostly, according to decades of research by the anthropologist Robin Dunbar, ordinary social chatter. Who did what? Who can be trusted? What happened to someone in the group? Studies of modern conversation that Dunbar has drawn on suggest the majority of everyday talk is exactly this kind of social exchange. And Dunbar's broader argument is that language itself may have evolved less for exchanging practical information and more for maintaining social bonds, a replacement for the physical grooming that other primates use to build trust, animal at a time. Language let a human sit at a fire and hold a relationship with an entire group at once, including people who weren't even there. If Dunbar is right, the boring hours around a fire filled with nothing but gossip may be one of the quiet engines behind human society itself. It's worth being honest about where the evidence gets firmer and where it gets speculative. That those beads and that flute exist, and how old they are, is about as solid as archaeology gets. That boredom specifically, rather than ritual, status display, for courtship, was the motivation behind any single artifact is something scholars still debate and likely will never settle with certainty. The mind that made a bead left no diary explaining why. What's stronger is the broader pattern, across tens of thousands of years and different continents. Whenever early humans had unstructured time, something symbolic tended to emerge from it. And that pattern connects to something happening in your own head right now. Neuroscientists have identified a set of brain regions called the default mode network, which activates not when you're focused on a task, but precisely when you're doing nothing, staring out a window, lying awake, waiting for a kettle to boil. It's implicated in memory consolidation, self-reflection, and creative problem-solving. It only really switches on in the gaps, which means the quiet, understimulated moments that most of us now treat as an inconvenience to be filled with a phone are, neurologically, doing something remarkably similar to what a bored mind was doing in a cave 40,000 years ago. Think again about that shell, waiting 75,000 years in the dark before anyone found it. It wasn't made because someone needed it. It was made because someone had time, and a mind restless enough not to waste it on nothing. We've spent most of our history learning what to do with silence. We made beads out of it, music out of it, gossip and gods and questions out of it. Then, quite recently, we built a device that never lets the silence arrive. The next time you feel that particular itch, reaching for your phone before a single quiet second has passed, it might be worth asking what that ancient mind, sitting by its fire with absolutely nothing to do, would have gone on to make instead.